Hi viewer L, hope you are fine, and L request for you subscribe this channel. The day I came home covered in blood and dust, my mother looked at me like I was a stranger. Not her daughter, not someone she once kissed goodnight. Just a burden standing at the front door. I still remember the way my fingers shook as I held my small travel bag. My left arm was wrapped in dirty bandages from the factory accident, and every breath burned through my chest. I had spent 12 hours on a crowded bus just trying to get home. Because home was supposed to be safe. But I was wrong. You lost your job, my older brother Daniel asked, staring at me with disappointment instead of concern. I nodded slowly. The factory machine had exploded 2 weeks earlier. 3 people were injured. I was the worst. My boss paid for 2 days at the clinic, then replaced me before my stitches even healed. And suddenly, I was useless. My mother crossed her arms tightly. We can barely survive ourselves, Clara. Not, how are you feeling? Not, are you okay? Just bills, problems, burdens. I tried not to cry as I stepped inside the tiny house I grew up in. Everything looked smaller somehow. The faded curtains, the cracked wooden table, the family photos hanging proudly on the wall. Photos where everyone smiled beside me. Before I became inconvenient, that night, I overheard them talking in the kitchen while I lay awake on the couch. She'll stay here forever, Daniel whispered. She can't even work properly anymore, my mother replied coldly. What future does she have? Every word felt like another wound opening inside me. But the worst part, no one thought I could hear them. For the next few weeks, I became invisible in my own home. My mother served dinner without asking if I was hungry. Daniel avoided looking at me altogether. My younger sister borrowed my clothes and sold some online without even asking. I felt erased, like my existence embarrassed them. Then one rainy afternoon, everything changed. An old lawyer arrived at our house carrying a thick envelope. I'm looking for Clara Bennett, he said. My mother answered the door first. Suddenly her voice became sweet again. That's my daughter, she smiled nervously. The lawyer handed me the envelope personally. Inside was a letter, from my grandfather. My hands trembled before I even opened it. My grandfather Elias had died 6 months earlier. He lived alone on a quiet farm outside town, raising bees and making honey. Most of my family considered him strange, poor, forgettable, but not me. When I was little, Grandpa Elias used to sit beside me for hours under the summer trees. He taught me patience, gentleness, strength, and according to the letter, he had left everything to me. Not my mother, not Daniel, me, the farm, the land, and over 200 beehives. The room went silent. I looked up slowly and saw something terrifying in my family's eyes for the first time. Not love, not relief, greed, and what I didn't know then was that Grandpa's bees were about to change my entire life. 3 days later, my mother suddenly started making my favorite meals again. Daniel offered to drive me to the pharmacy. Even my sister hugged me for the first time in months. It would have felt touching if I hadn't already heard them whispering behind closed doors. The farm could be worth a fortune. She doesn't know how to run it. We'll convince her to sell. I said nothing, but inside me, something finally broke. Or maybe, something finally woke up. A week later, I moved into Grandpa Elias's farmhouse. The place smelled like wood, honey, and old books. Dust floated through warm sunlight near the windows, and outside, thousands of bees hummed softly across the fields. For the first time in months, I felt peace. Grandpa had left me handwritten journals stacked beside his bed. Inside were years of notes about bees, honey production, weather patterns, flower cycles, and business contacts. At first, I was terrified. I knew nothing about beekeeping. But every page felt like Grandpa was guiding me personally. Bees only sting when they feel threatened, one note read. People are often the same. I cried the first night I read that. Because suddenly, I understood everything. My family didn't love me when I was weak. They loved what they could take from me. Still, I worked hard. Despite the pain in my injured arm, I learned how to care for the hives. I woke before sunrise. I cleaned equipment. I harvested honey carefully, one frame at a time. And slowly, the bees healed something inside me. Not my scars, but my spirit. Then business started growing faster than I expected. A local organic market agreed to sell Grandpa's honey under a new label, Elias Gold. Within months, people from nearby towns were ordering jars online. Food bloggers praised the taste. Small cafes started calling me directly. For the first time in my life, I wasn't surviving, I was building something. That's when my family came back. Daniel arrived first wearing a fake smile and expensive shoes. "You shouldn't handle all this stress alone," he said casually. "Family should help family." I almost laughed. This from the same brother who once called me hopeless. Then my mother visited carrying flowers. "I know we made mistakes," she whispered dramatically. "But we were worried about you." Worried. The word felt poisonous. But the real betrayal came weeks later. One afternoon, I discovered Daniel had secretly contacted a property developer behind my back. He planned to pressure me into selling the farm by convincing everyone I couldn't manage it alone. I found emails, signed documents, even profit estimates. My own family was trying to steal Grandpa's legacy from me. Again, that night, I sat outside beside the hives under the cold moonlight. Thousands of bees rested quietly inside their wooden homes while tears rolled down my face. I wanted revenge. Not screaming revenge. Not destruction. I wanted them to finally feel what abandonment felt like. And then, an idea came to me. One that would change everything. The town's annual harvest festival arrived 2 months later. It was the biggest event of the year. Farmers, business owners, reporters, investors, everyone attended. And this year, Elias Gold Honey had become one of the festival's main sponsors. Daniel thought he was arriving as my business partner. Because that's what I allowed him to believe. He wore a polished suit and smiled proudly beside me while cameras flashed around us. My mother sat in the front row acting like the proud parent she had never been. But they didn't know what I had planned. When I stepped onto the stage for my speech, my hands trembled slightly. Not from fear, from release. I looked out at the crowd, then slowly began speaking. "People often ask me how this business became successful so quickly," I said softly. "And the truth is, it started with abandonment." The room became silent. I saw Daniel's smile weaken immediately. I continued carefully. "When I lost my job and came home injured, I believed my family would protect me. Instead, they treated me like I had no value left." My mother's face turned pale. "But my grandfather left me something greater than money. He left me purpose. These bees taught me something powerful." I paused. "They taught me that communities survive by protecting their weakest members. Not by discarding them." The audience stared quietly. Then I revealed everything. The emails. The secret deal. The attempts to force me into selling the farm. Gasps spread across the room. Daniel stood up instantly. "Clara, stop this." "No," I said firmly for the first time in my life. "You stopped being my family the day you decided my pain was inconvenient." The silence after that felt enormous. Heavy. Final. The property developers quietly backed away from Daniel within days after the scandal spread through town. His reputation collapsed almost overnight. My mother tried calling me repeatedly afterward. But I no longer answered. Not because I hated them. Because I finally loved myself enough to stop begging for love from people who only valued me when I was useful. A year later, Elias Gold became one of the most respected honey farms in the region. But the real victory wasn't money. It was peace. Sometimes I still sit beside the hives at sunset and think about Grandpa Elias. About how everyone dismissed him because he lived quietly among bees. But he understood something most people never do. Real strength is gentle. Real love protects. And the people who abandon you during your darkest moments should never be trusted with your brightest ones.